Hello, bot builders. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time it is for you in the world where you are. I hope you are all having a lovely Tuesday, or indeed perhaps Wednesday for some of you, depending on the magic of time zones, as it were. My name is Robert. Welcome to the Botpress Basics Office Hours. These are for people that are new to Botpress, but of course, I hope that you're all feeling very welcome here, regardless of how experienced you are on the platform. I'm really looking forward to today's session. Because if you haven't logged into Botpress yet today, or if you have, I am sure that one of the things that you've seen is our new dashboard experience. So today's live stream will be diving into all of these. I'll be answering any questions you have about either our dashboard or maybe some upcoming changes that we'll be making like this one, so on and so forth. One thing I want to say before we get started is if any of you are new here, typically the way that I run these live streams is I will go through the week's previous most asked questions on our server, see what kinds of questions you all are having, see what kind of feature requests or kind of functionality queries you might be having, and then go through, consolidate some of them, and turn that into a little lesson. That being said, I encourage all of you very strongly to try to derail me. Of course, this is a live stream, so I want you to ask questions. I want you to get involved and be engaged, and I want you to feel like you can't ask your questions. This is first and foremost for all of you, and then it's fun for me second, but it's a very close second. I see Chris is in the chat. Chris is the Botpress team member who designed the new dashboard. Thank goodness for him. So without further ado, and I won't be yapping anymore, we'll dive right into some of these new changes. So typically when I start these streams, we'll start directly in the studio and we'll be doing, some bot building. I'll be answering some of your questions about bot building. But today we are starting over here in the dashboard, which of course needed a lot of love, and it got all the love that it needed. So I'm really happy. If you are watching the recording of this later on YouTube and you haven't toggled into the new dashboard experience, indeed, I encourage you to do so. You can do so either from this handy little button up here or indeed this little icon at the bottom. So we'll toggle right in. We'll see how things go. And bam, we have a beautiful new set of screens to look at, which feels very nice. As somebody who uses Botpress all day, every day, it's really nice to look at enjoyable screens. So I think the way that I'll proceed now is, of course, if any of you have questions about functionalities in the new dashboard, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go through the things that I think are most fun or most exciting all the way down to the bottom. With the large caveat that nothing is not exciting. So even if the feature you're most proud of, Chris, is the one that ends up at the end of the stream, know that there are no value judgments made here. All right, so we dive right in, and the first thing that you'll see, and I think for me the most important part of this update for me is that there's now a home for your workspace. So now, previously there was a sidebar or a side panel that showed all of the bots that were listed in a workspace, and at any given time, you were looking at the information related to one of those bots. We've consolidated that information and we've placed it into a home screen here. So now at a glance, you can see a lot of the information that's relevant to you, or you can see most of the information that would be relevant to you as a member of a workspace. For instance, you'll see here that each of these rows in this table shows all of the bots that I have in this workspace. I currently have 3. So I've got 3 bots here. We see a couple of other quick pieces of information, like the last time it was deployed, if there are any errors that are live, or for instance, like the number of integrations that I have installed. So those are the kind of fast bot facts that you'll see here. And then, of course, a couple of other options that you'll be able to see. If any of you are interested, or if you're curious about how to activate the Always Alive feature, it is done so here in this menu by clicking these 3 little dots. You can right-click to get to this menu also, as Chris demonstrates here, or as I demonstrate and Chris mentions. I'm right-clicking for those of you wondering. So currently you can see all the bots that you have in your workspace, and of course if you've purchased additional bots, they'll show up down here, but currently I've got 3. Then a couple of other things. I will touch this part perhaps at the end of the stream, so view as member and then public. I think if you're as old as I am and you've been on, Facebook and LinkedIn and whatnot for however many years that I've been alive, then this kind of feature will look familiar to you, but I will touch at this at the end of this week's stream. We'll hop in then. But otherwise, we'll dive directly into usages. Of course, one of the biggest, personally, for me, my biggest gripe was that I couldn't see usages directly here when I was looking at kind of this global overview. So I wanted to know what bots are in my workspace and how much of each resource do I have left. And so you can now see the most important ones sorted here for you under usages on this home screen. And then viewing all usages will take you to the dedicated usage tab, which is wonderful. And then I think a really cool one, particularly for those of you who are developers or are interested in the kind of development workflow. If you've used GitHub, I suspect this will be very familiar for you. But there's a nice little change log of all the different updates that have been made for your bot. I think this is particularly useful, not just for people developing bots as part of a team. So people that are, for example, if you're like the digital experience manager or the customer experience manager at a given company, you might find this useful to know where have your collaborators been and what have they been up to. But it's also particularly useful for those of you who have are either you're a freelancer or an agency, or you've hired a freelancer or an agency. This is a really rapidly growing segment of Botpress, and we're happy to work with these people. And we want to make sure that you are finding the things that are useful to you. So for example, the changelog is particularly useful if you're a customer to understand at what point is my freelancer going in, making changes to my bots. I want to know at what point are they doing things. You can see here that this is very much a one-man show over here in the in my audits log or in my stream workspace. It's really just me, but you would ideally see here other names, other email addresses to understand who's doing what in your workspace. And that kind of visibility is really important, not just for teams, but also for anybody who's planning on hiring anyone to work on the platform for them. That's a key feature. So really great stuff. I'm gonna skip over hub contributions for a sec. I will get to that at the end of the stream when I get over to this kind of view as member function. And that brings us to the end of the home screen. Once again, I'm really pleased to have this kind of, this is where you'll live when you're not looking at a specific bot, but you're thinking about Botpress. So this is kind of like your drive, your homepage, the start of your repo, if you're familiar with GitHub, et cetera, et cetera. So great stuff. As Carolyn has emojied, hype indeed. All right, we continue on. I think members is pretty self-explanatory. Again, there's just me here, but this is the place where you would add additional members. You can manage their viewing here, their role particularly, what permissions they'll have in your workspace, etc. Again, this was something that previously, because there was no global workspace view, adding members was more difficult than it needed to be. And so again, I'm really happy to see that it's front and center here. It's what we like to see because again, the number of people adding people to their workspaces keeps increasing, and that tells us like, okay, well, this is something that we know you find useful, or this is something that you're interested in, and so we want to make it easier for you to use this, so you don't even have to think about it. So at a glance, you can see who's in your workspace, who owns it, what their roles are. Pretty standard stuff here. We've already been through the audits page. One thing I will mention is that it's color-coded. So, additions are blue, deletions are red, and the timing of it goes back pretty far. It should go back to the creation of the workspace, which in this case was December 15th, 2023. Can anybody in chat tell me what happened on December 15th, 2023? And as you're all thinking, and I know you're all thinking about this, but as you're all thinking, I think I may have revealed about myself that I am indeed, I used to be a teacher back in another life, which feels like a very long time ago. But if you're ever watching these streams and you're thinking like, hey, how come this guy's talking to me like I'm in a class? That's why. That's why I call these streams lessons. If anybody is curious about what happened on December 15th, 2023, I see a couple of people typing, so I don't want to beat you to the punch. However, I think that I will. That was when we released our new pricing. So the current pricing structure on Botpress is new as of December 15th, 2023, which is great. And alongside that pricing, we released a lot of new functionalities, and here we are. A little piece of Botpress trivia for you. Question in chat. I'm looking to utilize the API from an AI I built similar to the version shown with the example of AI Assistant. I wanted to use Botpress as my front end. I was wondering how to do that. Saul, great question. I'm wondering, where is the AI you built, where is, I'm assuming you didn't build that with the OpenAI. You didn't build a GPT or an assistant. This is my assumption. If you want to use Botpress as our front end, I have two suggestions for you. The first is you might find our SDK or the Botpress API useful, in which case I would direct you to go to the documentation. We've got extensive API documentation, and the SDK, you'll find information about it as well there. You use MindStudio, I see. So take a look at that, see if that suits your needs. And then what I will also say is on Thursdays, my colleague Patrick, wonderful Patrick, he built the GPT extension, the one that you are talking about currently. He hosts a stream on Thursdays, which you might find instructive. That's specifically aimed at developers. So this question would be super appropriate for him. So my suggestion to you is have a read through some of that documentation, see what you can find, and then maybe ask the question to Patrick on Thursday or elsewhere on the stream. That's very useful. ZXSui asks, will there be a feature on the dashboard wherein we can restore our deleted chatbot? I deleted my chatbot accidentally a while ago. That is, well, first of all, RIP, that's really sad. I see Chris typing. I'm assuming Chris is responding to your question, so I'm gonna let him get at it. And if he doesn't, then I will ask him the same question. Alrighty. While we're waiting for that, no problem, Saul. Let me know how you get on. You don't have to wait for Patrick's stream. You can also ask on the Discord server as well. The help channel is great for that, but I would recommend Patrick. Okay. Yes. So Chris has answered. We don't currently plan on adding the feature to restore a deleted chatbot. This is why we float that big red button that says this is a permanent process and you can't recover it. I'm terribly sorry about that. I feel I get you. I understand. However, ZXSui, if that's something that you're interested in, something like a recently deleted or a trash bin feature, you can pop that in the feature requests channel. What I will say, and also to anyone else in the audience or watching on YouTube, one of the things that we take pride in here is that if something isn't on the roadmap, but there's a critical mass of Botpress users that want a thing, and there's clear demonstrable value to you, then we're always happy to add it into the platform. That's been responsible for a number of the changes we've made here. So what I would say is pop that over in the feature request channel if it's something you really want to see. And if it gets enough traction, then of course, we're always happy to change our mind. And as Kinetic says, I would regularly export your bots either to a local disk or a Google Drive. If you're not familiar with the import-export feature directly from the studio, you can just export to a BPZ and you can just save that file. You can maybe date them, store them in a folder. They shouldn't be very large. Bob's your uncle. I'm an uncle. I'm Bob. So integrations, I'm going to head back to the dashboard now. Here we've got integrations. What I'm going to say here is that you might be used to, in the old dashboard view, when you click onto the integration setting, you'll see each integration a bot has installed. That still exists. That's still there. That hasn't gone anywhere. But this integrations tab is different. You see we access this from the home screen, the home page. And so you'll see the language here says your workspace, stream workspace, the name of my workspace, doesn't own any integrations yet. You'll see here, it doesn't tell me I haven't installed any, it tells me I haven't owned any. This is because we want to make it easier for all of you to build and share integrations. And you'll see the item down here is telling you to build your first integration. This is because a lot of you, for example, like Saul, but then also, all of the people who have come through my stream asking for things like, hey, do you have X integration with Y platform? We want to make it very easy for all of you to build those integrations yourselves. Botpress has a huge suite of integrations we've built natively within the company, but there's always going to be a tool out there that one of you wants to integrate with that we haven't built for ourselves yet. And so we genuinely think that it would be a lot faster and easier for those of you who have the capacity or the team or the bandwidth to build these kind of integrations and to share them with others, to upload them yourself. So I think you'll see a huge focus from us in the future on giving you the capacity to build these integrations, share them with others, so that you don't have to wait for us to do it. Because I understand that's not something you want to do. I'm thinking, I hadn't planned on turning this stream into like a little roadmap kind of discussion, but I guess it's kind of going that way. I'll share what I can. Some questions in chat. How to save a user's question that our chat couldn't answer in a table, but in a separate column table, is it possible? Mac, that is absolutely possible. There's a video on our YouTube channel called Save Unanswered Questions, which is precisely what you're looking for. I uploaded that a little while ago, so you'll find that instructive, Mac. So take a look at that YouTube video, see if you can follow the instructions there to any kind of success. And then once you're done following that, and if you still can't figure it out, post over in the help channel and let us know what you did. But that is absolutely possible. DXD says, I have some nodes with fine data in my tables. There are too many. I have 20 tables with a lot of data. I need to extract all data, and I did it in that way, but it's very slow. How can I do it better? DXD, you ask a great question. If it works, then it works. And if what you're looking to do is make it faster, then I think it's difficult for me to help you out now because I don't have the bot in front of me. So what I would say is if you post over in help, do try to share a bot export. So using the export function I mentioned earlier, I'm sure you know about this. And then maybe someone from the community or we can take a look and see how to optimize your bot. But in general, my rule is like, if it works, then it works. All right. So that was integrations. That was kind of the spiel about integrations. I'm really hoping to see a lot more integrations from the community that you all have built, particularly because you all find these useful. Now let's take a gander at usage. I think this is the part for me that is the most exciting because I like charts. I like data visualization. It's all very exciting. So this makes it easier to understand at a glance where your Workspace is consuming resources and which of those bots are consuming resources. It was easy to understand previously. It's easier to understand now. So I don't know how much of this needs a lot of explanation. It's just a resource, description of the resource, and then the actual quota that you have. So you'll see here, we've got the name of the resource, how much each bot is using, what my total is, so on and so forth. AI spend right at the top, because that seems to be the one that we get the most questions about. Of course, to be expected. What is this? If you're interested in optimizing your AI spend or understanding it better, 2 weeks ago I did a live stream about, first of all, understanding how much AI tokens or how much AI spend your bot is actually consuming, how to know how much each action is taking, and then maybe a couple of tips and tricks to optimize that. So if that interests you and that sounds like something that would be useful to you, I would encourage you to take a gander at last week's live stream or the one from 2 weeks ago. You will find it on our YouTube channel, botpress.com. Or youtube.com/botpress. This, the part of this that will look familiar to all of you is over here, workspace details. So these are just some general settings for your workspace. And now I think it is finally time to talk about this over here. We'll talk about what the bot menus look like in a sec, but I want to go to the home page and I want to talk to you all about this. Okay, so this is going to be the newest part, and some of this is live and some of this is not. So on the profile part of things, you might be asking yourself, Robert, what is a profile? A profile to me implies some kind of publicly visible thing that I can share with other people. And that's exactly the point. So perhaps a little Botpress history lesson. Can you guess what I used to teach? A little Botpress history lesson here is that as of last summer, there's been a lot of users who have asked for things like a marketplace to share things with other people, or a place that they can share bots or integrations with other people. And one of the things that we have been focusing on is making sure that makes sense for people that are using Botpress today. So understanding what kind of features it is you want. And what we found is that there's a clear demand for people to demonstrate and share the work that they've done on Botpress in a way that is either verifiable or easily shareable or reproducible in some way. And so there's a clear need to integrate it into the experience that you have navigating through the studio and the hub and your dashboard. And then also relate that back to the work you're already doing. What I mean by that is, if you're a freelancer or an agency building on Botpress, or you're somebody who's downloaded Botpress or is using Botpress, has signed up for it, and wants to deploy a chatbot on your website, but building is not really your thing, so you want to hire someone to do it, there's a clear need for you to either, if you're the freelancer, to say, hey, this is the work that I've done, this is the kind of work I do on Botpress, or if you're the client in this case, the person to say, hey, I want to hire someone and I want them to be reputable and I want to take a look at the work they've already done. So this is the beginning of that feature. So you can see here we've added a couple of things where you'll be able to display a profile, so on and so forth. I haven't changed from a default image just to show you. But if I click view as public, this is what somebody would see. So if I was sharing this with a member, like a potential client, for instance, they would see this and they would know that I am a person who has built things on Botpress. There are things in the chat happening in a different language, which is fine. But if any of you are saying profanities, I will not be happy. But it's decay, so I doubt it. Carolyn. Thank you for this. Right side of the usage table is cut off. Yeah, do post in the UI feedback channel. Screenshot would be great. Thanks Thanks, Carolyn. You know the drill. Excellent. Okay, so this is what would happen. You could share this with a client or a potential freelancer, or maybe just your grandma. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And so you would see this here. And the idea of this ties into what I mentioned earlier about this integration setting here. So ideally, if you are a bot builder and you've built this integration and you think it's super useful, you can share that on your profile. And so here you'll see that this workspace owns these integrations, has created these. If you're familiar with GitHub, it should feel very similar to that. It should feel like navigating to someone's repo, navigating to someone's profile, understanding where have they made commits, what are their most important projects that they work on, how do they see themselves, how do they present themselves, etc. That's kind of the point here. We're trying to foster a collaborative environment where freelancers, agencies, clients, and bot builders or people interested in bot building can share resources with each other and also kind of build as you go, building in public. This is something, if you've been working in tech in the last couple of years, I think building in public is kind of it's a phrase that's so overdone that it feels cliche at this point, but it's cliche because it's true. Ramon, you ask a good question. So I will post the recording of this stream later today, so you'll see it on YouTube. I'm not going to repeat everything I just said for my own sanity and for those here. But there you go. Okay, so that's the deal with the new dashboard in terms of what you see at the workspace level. Now let's dive into some of these things that we see at the bot level. So I'll navigate into my testing bot, and we can pop over here. You'll see here that because we've reimagined the information that's shown to you at the home level, we've also reimagined the information that shows you what information is shown to you at the bot level. So when you click into a bot, you'll see that there's a couple of pieces of information shown. The first is analytics. And then, of course, if this was a live published bot, you would see some analytics and then some recent issues. So these are the two things that we think, and we're pretty sure, based on our experience building bots, etc. These are the things that you'll want to see as you're building. Are how's my bot doing? Is it having lots of conversations? Are people there on my website? Are they talking to it? Is it doing well? Are people returning to talk to it again? The usual kinds of analytics that you would see. That feature hasn't changed. It's just a matter of presentation. And then finally, recent issues. This is, I think, a new one that we're highlighting earlier on in the bot building process because we want to show you we want to give you the ability to understand, is my bot working properly? Do I feel like, am I confident in its ability to work properly? And is it running into any problems? So if we're floating any issues to you, you'll find them here. And then the rest of these menus should look familiar because a lot of them have been ported over directly from the old workspace, or dashboard rather. So if you're used to using the old one, don't worry, you don't have to learn everything from scratch. But it's probably worth giving all of you a refresher on the things you can find here. So of course, this is where you would install new integrations. Web chat is the default one, but this is where you can add things like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Telegram, etc. If you want to test out your bot, you can just pop it over here. You can have a conversation with your bot here. So you can use the emulator, but one of the key reasons that you'll see chat appears here is for two reasons. One, you can test out what it looks like here, and two, you can share this page with business stakeholders who are scared of using the emulator or who find it maybe a bit intimidating. What we found is that because there's so many features available in the studio, it's a bit like opening Figma. So in that way that on Figma, you might share a prototype with someone, a prototype of your design that they can just scroll through and interact with. It's the same thing here. You can just share this with them and they'll be able to chat there as well. Leaking the new web chat, I would never. I would never leak anything. Everything is, beta and subject to change. Logs, as usual, you'll find this here. Previous conversations, none of this has changed either. And then analytics are here as well. And then issues. Have there been any issues? No issues found. There we go. Okay, and then finally, the last thing you'll see is which integrations you actually have installed on your bot. So you can click into them. It'll take you to the integrations page. And there you go. So overall, a much cleaner experience for navigating through the dashboard. I really love to see it. Chris, if you're still here, great job. I'm really pleased to see all of this, and I hope that you are too. I'm curious to know if you're in the audience, what do you think about all this? Do you have any other things you'd like to see in the dashboard? Are you happy with these changes? I'm assuming all of you are, because if I am, it means you are, and no opinion can differ from mine. That was a joke for posterity, but not really. It's amazing. I agree. I think this speaks to the kind of Botpress philosophy is like, what are you all doing on Botpress, and who are you, and are you enjoying yourself, and what are you finding useful and productive? And those are the people that we want to continue fostering collaboration with. So when you manage a SaaS product like ours, there's going to be lots of people using the product all the time, and one of the things that we're like really keen on focusing on are the people who use Botpress to great value. So the people that are finding it useful, the people that find it exciting, the people that come back every day, etc. Carolyn was using really long titles. So there are two things. I assume that you were exceeding the max width, and then also, how long were your bot titles such that they were floating off the page? What were you calling them? I'm pretty sure the average bot title is like, I don't know, for me it's just soup. All right. So back to what I was saying, there's always going to be lots of people using your software product, and we want to make sure that what we've built speaks to the people that are using and enjoying Botpress every day. And what we found is that those people are familiar with things like GitHub, they're familiar with the Git workflow, they see Botpress as a tool that helps in their development, and it makes their life easier for some respects, and they want things like extensibility, but then also an interface that is familiar to them. So if things start to look a lot more GitHub-esque, that's why. That's what you'll see there. And as always, I want to say there are 2 channels on our Discord server where you can request additions. So if there are additional things you want to see at the workspace level, things that you think could be easier, experiences that you're, you think I have to click too many times to get into something, that's what our feature requests channel is for here on the server. And of course, also the UI feedback channel if you're running into small UI changes there. I add some suffixes, so when I export the files, they have very descriptive names. Carolyn, once again, I'm very happy to say that you are much smarter than I am, because my downloads folder is full of .bpz files that are dated, and I don't know what they are. And they're just there, and sometimes it really does feel like I'm doing a scratch card at the grocery store when I'm importing a BPZ, because it could be anything. It could be one of you has helped me, or I'm helping one of you, or it could be one of my BPZs. So I have to say, those Botpress zips can get a bit out of control. So adding descriptive suffixes is a genius. If we could make the export have our names or something, that would solve that problem. It would solve that problem. It would create other problems. Everything is a hydra, as it were. So true that, isn't it? All right. So that's the new dashboard. I think I'm going to just really quickly, I will ask, Mac, are you still here? You asked a question earlier about saving unanswered questions to a table. Mac, if you're still here, I can demonstrate that live. If you're not here, I see you typing. Yeah, no problem. Okay. So I've got a couple of minutes left for today's stream, so I will demo that for you, Mac. No problem. So we'll just hop into the studio. We'll hop into the studio. I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that I had built here, and we'll start from scratch. I will say that everything I'm about to show you is repeated in the video. So Mac, you don't have to wait for the recording of this live stream to come out. You can just go ahead and I have so many knowledge bases. You can go ahead and watch that video if this doesn't, if I've gone too fast or something, but I feel like it's easier to show things live. Okay, let me just delete all the stuff that I have here, and then we'll get started. Dum, dum, dum. All right, so Mac, the first thing I would do in this case is there are 2 phases to this problem that you have. The first is, of course, we need a knowledge base to answer questions from. So I'll add a knowledge base. I'll use a simple rich text file, and I'll just say the tiger is green. This is a simple debugging step for me that I use when I'm starting to build bots, because in this case, my bot shouldn't know anything except for this one sentence. So if I ask it anything else, it won't be able to answer. So that's what I'm doing here. The next thing I'm going to do is we want a table to store these questions in. So I'll create a table. I'll call this no answer, and we'll see that this is the no answer table. Mac, please remind me of the specific conditions you had. You said something about separate columns. So can you please remind me, how was it that you wanted to store these questions or these unanswers? I believe that you had some specific conditions. Otherwise, I'll just do it the way I normally do. Dum, dum, dum. All right, while I'm waiting for you to answer, I'll just start building my flow. So I'll just say something like hello and welcome. And of course, I'll use a raw input card to answer the question. If it's been a minute since you've been on Botpress, I have to say that there's a new, we've revamped the menu for showing which knowledge base is included in a capture card. And it looks a lot nicer. So I'm really happy to say all I have to do is click Tiger and it looks great now. So kudos to that. So now what's going to happen is user asks a question, bot will share an answer if it has an answer. And then if it doesn't have an answer, that's where we'll be doing some customizing. So I'll be changing how the bot behaves based on whether or not it is or is not able to find an answer. While we're waiting, I have to say it's been a very lively week at the office, and it's only going to get even more lively. There's, as many of you know, Botpress has 2 offices, one in Quebec City and one in Montreal. And currently there's a lot of people in the Montreal office. The vibes are great. The sun is out and shining. We've been listening to a lot of Matchbox 20. So if I've got any Matchbox 20 fans in the audience, give me, I don't know, a German flag. Did you know that Rob Thomas was born in Germany? There's my fun fact for you for the day. Matt asks, how to send payload value from web page to a custom trigger. I managed to send to start node. Is there a video? I posted in help. Matt, I don't know that I have an answer to your question right now. I would say let's just wait on that that help chat. I'm sorry, I don't have a clear answer for you. Okay, Mac, I want to be able to store a user's question, but also I want to have a separate table or column where the question that my bot is not able to answer. Okay, cool. So then it sounds like we'll need 2 tables, one for no answers and one for questions. So in this case, it's going to store a question every time. So this table will give you all of the questions people have asked your user regardless. And this table will store both the question that your bot was not able to answer. So these should have 2 different contents. I'm going to make a decision here to store all the questions, answered or not. And in this case, this one will be just no answer. That's because I, as a digital person myself, I always want to know all the questions my people are asking, and then I want to know which ones I have to address. So Mac, that's the decision I've made here. Okay, so at this point, I'll need to do an expression card. So an expression is a card that allows you to define the conditions for a transition. So should your bot move to another node or not? That's what's going to happen here. So the first condition is, was my bot able to answer a question? Yes or no? If my bot was able to answer a question, I want it to skip this and just continue executing as normal. And if it wasn't, I want it to go to another node. So what I'm going to do is I'll just type in the condition turn.knowledgeagent.answer, and this will find out, does this have a content? Was my bot able to answer a question? And if it wasn't, then we'll go to this node over here. We know that this is a negation because I placed an exclamation mark here. So in the JavaScript world, an exclamation mark is what's denoting a negation in this case. In other words, no answer, go here. So I'll call this node no answer. And this is the crucial step. So in this case, what I'm going to do is pop an insert record card. So now what I'm telling my bot to do is, in the table no answer, in the table called no answer, I want you to store this value. I want you to create a new record or a new row or line item in the table called this, with this value. So in the question column, place this here. Now, you'll see the @ here, and if you hover over it, it will tell you to insert a variable. That tells you that this field, so in other words, this whole rectangle here, supports the expression of variables, so dynamic content. You might be asking yourself, what the heck's a variable? In this case, when the user asks a question, I want to store the value of that question in a certain variable, and I'll call that user question. So this is from a previous bot, but I'll save that result in a variable called user question. So when my bot ends up here, and my bot is saying, okay, I'll create a new record or a new line item in the table for you, and what value should I put here? You can just place workflow.userQuestion, and this will be replaced by whatever your user has asked. Now, this will only trigger if your bot wasn't able to find an answer. If your bot was able to find an answer to that question, it'll continue executing the cards in your node from top to bottom. In other words, what that means is your bot will continue to execute this one, and it'll skip over this one because the condition's not met. So then we'll end up lower in the node, and we'll place another insert record card. So this one is going to go over to the questions table, and it's going to save the user question here. So let's recap. What's going to happen here is user asks a question. If my bot can't answer the question, it's going to go here. And if it can, it's going to go here. If it can't answer the question, it's going to save that question to the no answer table. And if it can save the question, answer the question, it's going to save it to the questions table. Now, at the beginning of this exercise, I said to all of you, I want to save every question in the questions table, not just the ones that I could answer, which means that we'll need a second insert record card. So I've made this more complicated for myself on purpose, just to show you. So once this executes, I also want to save that no answer question that couldn't find an answer, to my table, and there we go. So now I've got two insert record cards here, and they will execute. Now, Mac, I am assuming you want me to show you how this works, or we can test it out together. So let's try it. I'll say hi. I'll say, who is Jane Fonda? And of course, we shouldn't have an answer to this question. We continue on. Let's just take a look at the emulator before we dive into our tables. So we see no valid answer found. That means that my bot, of course, couldn't find an answer in the knowledge base. That makes sense. And then we transition to the node no answer because it couldn't find an answer. Both of these cards should be executed. So what I'm expecting to see is the question, who is Jane Fonda, in both of these tables. So we see it's over here, and we see it in the questions table as well. So Mac, I hope that helped you. That's exactly, I believe, the functionality you're looking for, but if you could confirm for me, that would be great. While we're waiting for that, Matt Cushing asks, how can I save multiple variables when prompting an AI task? It can recognize when a user has input their name, phone number, email, or other things that are variables based on the prompt and input. Matt, you ask a good question. Let's talk about it. I will be wrapping up our stream soon, so I won't show this as an example, but Matt, the answer to your question is, you'll see here the AI task allows you to store the result in multiple variables. You'll see here this is presented as a plural on purpose, because you can just place multiple variables in this topic. Then, if you've prompted your AI task to look for an email, a phone number, and a location, and your variables are email, phone number, and location, your AI task should be able to save all of those variables automatically. So the solution to your question, Matt, is place multiple variables in the AI task export result card. Kinetics asks, if a bot presents multiple options and the user types a question instead, how do you handle the response? If a bot presents multiple options and the user handles a question instead. So let me show you kinetics. This is what I would do. So let's say I have multiple options here. So I have A, B, C, and then I'll just close this for now. So essentially what's happening in kinetics is, I think a good way to frame this in your mind is like, you've asked the user for a capture. So you've asked the user to select an option, and if they fail to select an option, your bot will consider that a failure. So in other words, we hop into advanced configuration, we go to advanced, and you'll see here, add transition to handle failure. So this is how I would handle that. So in other words, if my bot is expecting to receive A, B, or C, and instead my user says something else, I would add a transition to handle failure, and then you could ask another question, you could answer from a knowledge base based on what the user has sent, or you could give them another list of options. One thing to note is that your bot will automatically try to retry things. So I would first also include how many retries do you want to do? 1, 0, 2, 3, etc. That's how I would handle that. Kinetics, does that answer your question? Yeah, good to know. Great. Matt, I won't demo this now, but can you post in the help channel, and then could you tag me, and I'll maybe show you a quick demo or GIF of how I would set this up. Good? Great? Amazing? Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. Listen, all of you, I'm going to wrap up the stream here for today. So if anybody has any last minute questions, speak now or forever hold your bot building peace, as we say. Thank you so much to Chris for hanging out today, for building the new dashboard. It's really great to see. We love to ship these kinds of updates. I hope that all of you have a wonderful rest of your weeks. Some of you in Canada, I believe in the US, perhaps around the world, might have a short week this week. So make the most of it. Do good today. Be kind to other people. And I will see you all at next week's stream, or perhaps Patrick's on Thursdays. Bye, everyone. Happy bot building.